It should be noted, we have not mentioned yet that David Bell retired, former Browns third-round pick, so I want to make sure I throw that one in there as well.
Yeah, we gave him about as much as he gave us.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Ouch. Albert, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, guys. Well, that is, I would say I do think that's an important story. I think the Browns actually deserve some credit here. They did right by the guy, which we don't always see that with NFL teams in situations like this. A lot of times you'll see the teams will run for cover and try to absolve themselves of any sort of blame in these situations. So I do deserve, and we don't need to spend much time on it, but I do think they deserve credit for their handling of it.
So can you walk us through that? Because I think maybe I'm hearing a story I haven't heard yet.
Yeah, it was just, long story short, surgery that went bad. A really, really scary situation for him personally. And I don't want to screw up the facts. So, the details are out there on the internet now, but the Browns, the Haslams, as I understand it, were outstanding and did everything they could to make it right. And again, a lot of times, lawyers get involved in these things, and they'll tell an owner to go run for the hills. You know what I mean? And don't take on any liability or blame here. And it sounds to me, at least, like the Browns went the other way on that and did the right thing. So good for them.
Albert, it does feel like the Browns in the last couple of years have worked really hard to try to make that their mantra, whether that's Callahan going to Tennessee to be able to coach under his son, or whether that's even Joe Flacco last week and being able to go out and finish out his career somewhere else, even though it's an interdivision trade. How much goodwill does that actually build up, though? I think fans are always curious how much that actually does.
Yeah, I think it matters. I think you want to have a reputation of being the sort of place that people want to work, because it's such, in the end, this is still sort of a small world, the network of coaches, the network of scouts, the network of players. It's still as big as it seems to all of us. All these guys talk, and word can get around fast in those circles when teams aren't doing things the right way. I just think of the other end of it, and how hard it's been for the Bengals to shake their reputation of being cheap. And I can still remember, having that conversation with guys who played there about how the Gatorade, and this is kind of a funny old anecdote, but how they wouldn't have actual Gatorade, they would have the mix, so you'd have to take the powder and put it in water and shake it up. You know what I mean? I'm telling that story because that sort of stuff gets around. You know what I mean? So just an example of what sort of environment are you going to be working in if you go there? And, I think in that way, this sort of thing can certainly help, where, if you're the type of place where people want to work when you're looking for an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator, or you're looking to acquire a free agent, or you're looking to trade for a player, little things like that can make a difference.
So it's kind of interesting you make the point about what a small community this is. I'm assuming you saw Mike Tomlin's comments about the Joe Flacco interdivision trade, where he says, yep, Andrew Berry must be smarter than me. How did you read those comments from Mike Tomlin this week?
Well, I was surprised that he was so forthright about that. Maybe he's tired on a short week and just let it go. I can relate with that. I read it basically, Nick, it was just my interpretation of it. I think Mike and Kevin have a good relationship, and so I felt like it was Mike getting Kevin's back a little bit. And, I think to some degree it was, from a coach's standpoint, I wouldn't do that. I think it was showing some sympathy for the situation maybe the coaches were in, where it's all right, now my safety net's gone, and it's going to be tough for me to compete if I don't have that veteran quarterback on my roster anymore. Again, that's my interpretation of it. I wouldn't put words in Mike Tomlin's mouth, but that's sort of what I thought it was.
Albert, we've kind of been talking all show long about this trade that Evan Roberts in New York came up with. He's covers the Jets, and he wants the Jets to trade for Shedeur and offering up a 5th-round pick in return. Is there any feasibility to a team potentially calling and trying to lift Shedeur away from the Browns?
I can probably. I would think Evan. I know Evan a little bit. I would think maybe Evan wants to do that because it'd be good for his show, right? I mean, I can't think of why else the Jets would want to do something like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's much of a trade market out there for him. I think, like, quite honestly, I think the idea that was floated around last week when we didn't know whether or not he was going to be the number 2, they should march in there and ask for a trade. It's categorically some of the dumbest things I've ever heard in sports media, and the fact that it was coming from players was like completely mind-blowing to me. I mean, look, he's a 5th-round pick, all right? And, like, I don't know how many times we have to go through that, but, like, it's those guys, by definition, are developmental players, you know? So, like, the idea that, like, he would take a redshirt year, or he would need a redshirt year, it might be best for him to sit. Like, we've said that about a million different quarterbacks. So why is it, like, out of the realm of possibility, the best thing for Shedeur Sanders personally, not talking about the team or anything else, is to have that redshirt year and have a chance to learn. And I don't even know, like, whether or not, like he would agree with that, but, you know, I don't know. Like, the conversation on him, and this has nothing to do with him. This isn't him. The conversation around him has gotten so freaking stupid. I can barely handle it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't think there's much of a trade market out there for him. You know, based on what we saw in the preseason, I don't know why, like, some team would go and make a trade for him in mid-season. But, you know, I mean, if the name recognition is there, then people can latch on to it and fill their segments and their column inches and everything else. So more power to them.
So we definitely have had conversations about this and how just irregular the conversation is, and size and scope, and, you know, the energy and the anger, or, you know, on either side, really. I guess for somebody who's watched so many big stories come to the NFL and in the way that they've been processed, why do you think the Shedeur story is where it is, where, again, every conversation feels life and death, and there's a gulf between both of the extreme sides?
Because nobody involved is trying to stop it. And I think, like, with Tebow, so there was this thing with Tebow, right? And, like, you know, the thing that always bothered me about, like, the Tebow conversation is, like, no one paid attention to, like, he spent, like, over 2 years out of football completely, right? Like, if, and this is nothing personal against him, these are his own decisions, but, like, if he loved football that much and wanted to develop that badly as a quarterback, why didn't he go to Canada, right? Like, somebody up there would have had him, and he would have had the chance to get in games and develop and work with coaches and make a living. Like Colin Kaepernick, same thing. Like, if he wanted it that badly, why didn't he go to Canada? And I know with guys who are that level of star, it can be a tough thing, but if you want to be an NFL quarterback that badly, then why are you willing to sit out seasons? You know? And I remember the conversation around him got so stupid. People weren't bringing things like that up. The conversation around Tebow and Stidham got really dumb, and, like, people wouldn't bring those sorts of things up. It was just like, well, why isn't he a starter? It's like, well, why don't we start with why isn't he developing somewhere as a backup, right? But no one around Tebow, including Tebow himself, was stopping the conversation from happening. And I think there was, like, sort of this willful ignorance to what was going on around Tebow, right? Like, where it was like no one wanted to ask the real questions. It was just like, let's just, like, let the circus roll on. And because nobody around Tebow or Tebow himself wouldn't stop it, it just kept going. I mean, have you gotten any sense that anybody around Shedeur is stopping this conversation?
No, doesn't seem. No,
right?
The same around the Browns, though.
Saying, like, but I mean, like, no one's saying, like, honestly, and this isn't a shot, but, like, why is Shedeur saying, like, I just want to get better today? You know what I mean? Like, I had a great practice. This is a great opportunity for me to develop as a quarterback. I just want to get better today. You know? Like, why does everything have to be about him starting? Like, I don't know. Like, I've seen, like, young players in those situations, like, say those sorts of things, you know? Is he too big a star for that?
He might think he is. He might think he is, yeah.
I just think it's an interesting conversation. You know what I mean? And it's not a shot at anybody, you know? Because I think to some degree, some of these guys become almost like child stars, where they've been famous for so long. It's like, their perception of reality in sports. It's a much larger conversation to have, but I think the right answer for him in these situations would probably be, look, this is a great opportunity for me to develop on a day-to-day basis with NFL coaches and an NFL system, and I'm going to make the most of it every day. And, if, they feel like I'm ready to go, then they'll put me out there, and how much this would be diffused then? Instead we're hearing about how he's one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet. How is that? What does that have to do with anything else? With anything that's going on right now? I don't know. I mean, I think that there's and that's not going to help him get more opportunities later either, right?
Yeah, what I think is interesting, though, is that I've noticed the conversation around Shedeur fans over the weekend kind of shifted after watching Dillon Gabriel not have an offensive line and not really have much with the receiver help either, dropping passes and really getting no separation. It was
Dillon Gabriel threw the ball 52 times on Sunday. He dropped back 58 times. That is, I think Kevin and Tommy and all those guys are are really good offensive coaches. But I don't know what young quarterback is going to survive in that situation. You know what I mean? Against that defense with that offensive line. He threw the ball 58 plays.
Yeah, and Albert, I think that's why Shedeur fans over the weekend were like, okay, fine. Go ahead, Dillon. Do your best. We'll hang out.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. So that's the thing. It's I think a lot of times these conversations lack context, And I just think look, there are some guys that are better off playing right away. But I'd say 80% of them aren't, I don't think it's a mistake that some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time sat. If we look at the great ones from the last era, the era that we would say just included, right? Look at who you've got. You know what I mean? You've got you got Tom Brady who sat for his entire first year, right? You've got Aaron Rodgers, who sat for his first 3 years. Peyton Manning played right away, but I'd say Peyton Manning had a rare level of preparation for the job, and I think he set the league record for interceptions as a rookie, right?
Yeah.
How would that be digested today if that happened now? Pat Mahomes sat for an entire year. Lamar Jackson sat for half of his rookie year. I don't know. I mean, I think, too often these kids are forced out there into situations where they're on bad teams. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of reclamation projects now, too. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Geno Smith got the opportunity to sit after they played out and got the chance to learn that way, right? Alex Smith, how many different coordinators and how many different – it's just – there are so many examples of these guys being failed by their circumstances. I've always said this, how many guys went into bad circumstances and thrived? I can think of one, Andrew Luck, right? I think Andrew Luck was not in the best circumstances, and he made the playoffs as a rookie and went one round further in his second year and one round further in his third year. So there's one example of a guy. And then he wound up getting so beat up that he had to retire early. I think it's a fascinating discussion that we could spend 4 hours on, but I don't know. I don't know what exempts Shedeur from that, and what makes the best thing for Shedeur just to be to throw him out there. You know what I mean? Why? So he can grow his brand? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I would tend to think most guys are better off sitting, and guys with the profile that Sanders had coming out are usually the ones who are best off sitting. So I just, the guys who succeed, a lot of the guys who've had a ton of success are the 5-year college guys, right? And the 5-year college guys who spent time in the biggest of big time programs. And Joe Burrow, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Burrow spent 5 years in pro style systems at Ohio State and LSU, thoroughly prepared when he came to the pros. And I don't know, but that's 10 or 20% of those guys. Most of them aren't ready. So I don't even know where we landed on this is the best thing for Shedeur to be playing right now. I don't know if that's the case either.
Albert Breer of the MMQ.
Dillon's a good example. That Dillon played 6 years in college. That's why he looks competent out there.
Albert Breer, MMQB on the Fan hotline there. So you've said, and you've been staunch in this since going back to last January, that Barry and Stefanski are safe, Haslam has their back, and you've always left a sidecar here unless things get like catastrophically bad. I know they're 1-5. Yeah. I expected them to be about 1-5, but are we anywhere near catastrophic yet for Barry and Stefanski?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think like this is going to be. I think how they're graded, by ownership this year is going to be based on like how. And you guys, we can run through the names again: Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, Quinshon Judkins, Harold Fannin. Like how those guys look, right? Like, and I think the expectation is the team will get better over the course of the year because of that. But look, like the core that they made the playoffs was aged out, and they've got some holes as a result of that. One combined with the fact that they didn't have first-round picks the last 3 years before this one, right? So, is it DeJuan Jones? Is it somebody else? Who's going to be the top receiver on the team next year? Do you have an edge rusher that's going to play opposite Myles Garrett for next year? There are, still a lot of questions to answer. The good news is they've got the capital to address a lot of that coming out of the year. So, your hope is that the positions that they did address, that they did put young talent into, are looking pretty good at the end of the year, which, I think, gives you, some confidence that whoever you're bringing into the building, what's the draft capital that you have for 2026, will develop the way that this last group, seems to be developing right now.
Albert, will Jim Schwartz be a serious contender for the Titans head coach opening?
I hadn't heard that. That's an interesting question. What about Eddie George?
No, Albert. Bowling Green just beat Toledo. We got Pudge the Cat. Keep your hands off my head coach, sir.
Oh, I didn't know you're a Bowling Green guy.
Yeah, I have suffered. The whole Loeffler thing, the Jinx era. Just give me 2 more years of Eddie. Come on, man.
We had a colorful nickname for Bowling Green that I can't say on the air when I was at Ohio State. Which we had a lot of nicknames for a lot of the schools. I'm sure you guys know. Right? Probably offended some people there. I think Jim Schwartz. I'd be surprised. Now, I do think that they're going to be looking for somebody with experience, and I do think that that's going to be a factor. But I also think if you look at the history of the guys who are there now, the general manager, Mike Borgonzi, had a lot of success with Andy Reid, obviously, in Kansas City. And then Chad Brinker was with offensive coaches in Green Bay, and Mike McCarthy and Matt LaFleur, and they got a young quarterback they've got to develop. So I think Jim Schwartz's knowledge of ownership there and knowledge of the situation in Nashville helps. His experience as a head coach helps. I tend to think that they're probably going to lean more in the direction of offense, but it's not impossible.
Albert, great stuff, buddy. Sorry for attacking over Eddie George. Is very protective. We appreciate you, buddy.
There was no laughter then after I gave the right state. In Kent State.
Actually, Albert, your phone cut off, so it really wasn't even like a. We just cut off.
Good. Well, you guys know the Kent State and Wright State are nicknames, so I won't repeat them.
All right, that's fair. Be good, buddy. We appreciate you.
Albert. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too, bud. Albert Breer there on the Fan hotline.